Stephen A. Smith finally said what the WNBA hierarchy has been trying to dance around for months. This was the moment they feared.
Before I get on out of here, I had to talk about a story that's very, very important. And albeit indirectly, it involves Caitlin.
Because once the loudest voice in sports media said it out loud, there was no putting it back in the box. Caitlin Clark isn't just playing basketball anymore. She's rewriting the business model of women's sports in real time. And the league that should have protected her might have just pushed its biggest asset too far. Reports are now swirling that upcoming collective bargaining agreement talks are going to be brutal. Not tense, not complicated, brutal. And the reason is simple. Clark holds the leverage, all of it. The commissioner is scrambling, veterans are frustrated, and behind closed doors, executives are realizing something uncomfortable. This isn't about a raise, it's about power, and possibly the future of the league itself. To understand why Commissioner Kathy Engelbert is reportedly stunned by how quickly things escalated, you have to rewind to the moment the foundation cracked. The WNBA Players Association recently opted out of its current labor agreement. On paper, that's a union move. In reality, everyone knows what changed. The league just locked in a media rights deal worth more than $2 billion, a number that would have sounded fictional just a few years ago. That explosion didn't come from nowhere. It came from one jersey. Viewership spiked overnight. Arenas filled up in cities that used to struggle to sell tickets. Merchandise vanished in minutes. Road games turned into events. The league created the structure, but Caitlin Clark created the relevance. And once that became obvious, the balance shifted. Because if the player driving the revenue doesn't like the terms of the deal, the entire system starts to wobble. But the money wasn't even the most dangerous part. The real pressure came from something Stephen A. Smith has been warning about for months: an alternative, a backup plan, a threat that's no longer theoretical. Unrivaled. What started as a new off-season league quickly turned into something much bigger, founded by established stars, designed to keep elite players in the US, and quietly built with serious funding behind it. At first, it looked like a nice option for players who didn't want to grind overseas. Then, the rumors changed. Suddenly, it wasn't just about salary. It was about equity, ownership, a structure where players weren't employees, but partners. Stephen A. Smith compared it to the messy deal in Miami for a reason. Not because of numbers, but because of leverage. That changes everything. For decades, the WNBA operated with one advantage: monopoly. If players wanted to make real money, they had to leave the country. Dangerous travel, exhausting schedules, long seasons stacked on top of short ones. Now, that pressure is gone. There's a domestic option, fewer games, less wear and tear, bigger upside. And for a player like Clark, who logs heavy minutes and plays at full throttle every night, that option is very real. That's when the league realized it no longer controlled the board. Stephen A. Smith didn't hold back when addressing how the WNBA handled Clark's rookie season. In his words, the league committed catastrophic mismanagement of a generational talent. Instead of shielding and celebrating her, they let a hostile environment fester. Hard fouls, body checks, officials swallowing whistles, passive-aggressive comments from legends. A very clear, you don't belong at this table energy playing out on national television. The league had a chance to do what the NBA did with Jordan, with Magic, with Bird. Instead, they treated Clark like just another rookie who needed to earn her place the hard way. And fans noticed, why would Clark rush to help a system that didn't help her? That question becomes even louder when you look at the numbers. Clark's rookie salary sat around $76,000. That's not a typo. In the same season, she helped turn struggling franchises into sellout events. Teams moved games into larger NBA arenas just to meet demand. Attendance records fell everywhere she went. She didn't just boost her own team, she subsidized the entire league. Stephen A. Smith made that point bluntly. Clark was putting money in the pockets of players who were fouling her hard and questioning her presence. That dynamic doesn't last. And no amount of league rhetoric can smooth over math that ugly. The WNBA only modernized certain things once Clark arrived. Charter flights became standard after security concerns spiked. Media coverage followed her schedule, not the other way around. Every improvement traced back to the same source. And Clark's camp knows it. This isn't greed, it's business. The league operated for years on a model where players had no leverage. That era ended the moment Clark stepped on the court. And now, negotiations aren't about fairness in theory, they're about value in practice. Which is where things get uncomfortable for the union. The WNBA has to represent everyone, from superstars to end-of-bench players. But leverage doesn't come from balance, it comes from stars. And internally, there's tension between protecting equality and acknowledging reality. Clark is worth more. That's not opinion, that's revenue. If the union tries to force a structure that ignores that fact, they risk losing the only bargaining chip strong enough to force real change. Rumors suggest Clark's team is pushing for mechanisms the league has never used before. Exceptions, historic pay structures, deals that don't look like anything in WNBA history, and then there's the equity issue. This is the part that scares executives the most. In sports, the real wealth isn't salary, it's ownership. Michael Jordan didn't become a billionaire from NBA checks. He did it through equity, brand control, long-term stakes. If Unrivaled offers Clark even a small slice of ownership, the WNBA simply can't compete structurally. Their system doesn't allow it. That's a 21st century problem being attacked with a 20th century rulebook. And culture is making it worse. Brands care about image. They care about safety. They care about positivity. A league perceived as hostile to its biggest star becomes a risk. Clark protecting her brand by demanding better conditions isn't selfish, it's smart. The rough play, the online hate, the messy narratives. None of that sells sneakers or insurance policies. By refusing to accept the status quo, Clark isn't just protecting herself, she's protecting the money pipeline the league depends on. Stephen A. Smith drew a historical parallel that hit hard. In the early 1,980 seconds, the NBA was struggling. Finals aired on tape delay, interest was fading. Then, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird arrived. The league treated them like royalty because it understood the moment. The WNBA is at that same crossroads. They have the savior, but they're treating her like a problem. You can't have it both ways. You can't cash the growth checks while pretending the source doesn't matter. The timing couldn't be worse. The league is expanding. New teams, new cities, new ownership groups paying record fees to get in. Why? Because they're betting on the growth curve. Clark started, franchise values are tied directly to her presence. If she walks, those numbers collapse. That pressure isn't just coming from players. It's coming from billionaires who didn't buy teams to watch ratings fall. They bought in to host Caitlin Clark and sell out arenas once a year. And then there was the Olympic moment. Clark being left off the Team USA roster didn't land as a basketball decision to the public, it landed as gatekeeping. NBC lost potential ratings, fans were confused, and Clark got a clear message. The establishment wasn't on her side. That moment mattered. Why sign long-term agreements with the same power structure that sidelined you when the spotlight was global? Now the clock is ticking. If Clark refuses the deal, it doesn't look dramatic. It looks strategic. A holdout. A season focused elsewhere. Ratings fall instantly. Networks get angry. Executives start making calls because those media partners didn't pay billions for a logo. They paid for a star. Clark doesn't need the WNBA paycheck. Endorsements cover that easily. She's playing for legacy and leverage, not rent money. And silence has become part of the strategy. She hasn't gone public with demands, no fiery interviews, no ultimatums. That uncertainty is driving leadership crazy. They don't know what she wants, which means they can't plan around it. And fans are watching everything. The new audience doesn't care about league history. They care about number 22. Alienating Clark means alienating millions of customers who just showed up. The growth isn't systemic yet. It's star-driven, fragile. And that's the shock. The WNBA's power over its players is gone. Stephen A. Smith's comments didn't create that reality. They confirmed it. Caitlin Clark has the leverage, the options, and the public support to refuse any deal that doesn't reflect her value. The commissioner can be surprised all she wants. But the math is done. The price just went up. And if the league won't pay it, someone else will. For the first time in WNBA history, the player is holding the pen. The only question left is whether the league signs the check or watches its future walk out the door.